Let's check out our first story, shall we?
Edgar Degas once said, "Art is not what you see, but what you make others see." It's the talented artists, sculptors, designers that make art so beautiful.
I got into the art industry because my parents are both creative people and artists. My mother was a fashion designer and my father an artist doing thousands of drawings and etchings and was an illustrator and commercial artist. They had an art studio in our home and I was always encouraged from the time I can remember to go into the studio, draw, paint, make collage, whatever. So they were a huge part of me always thinking of myself as an artist, and that was a viable profession to pursue. In fact, my father had a huge collection of art books that he would read to me, like storybooks, read the biography of a particular artist and show me the pictures of his artwork. And so from the time I can remember as a child, always having discussions about art and being creative. I went to undergraduate school at UC Davis and always focused on sculpture. Although as an undergraduate, I pursued photography as well. Another thing my father always told me was always document your work and record what you do as an artist. At Davis, there was a big focus on ceramics, which I also incorporated into my work. Always been attracted to mixed media. I love materials and change materials frequently depending on the piece or the idea that I have and want to create. In fact, sometimes materials inspire ideas, and I also work with found objects a lot, which trigger my imagination, and then the object becomes a vehicle for the final piece. What I love about being an artist is it keeps me connected to my imagination and intuition at all times. I've from a young age relied on my intuition to guide me, not only in my artwork, but in my career and all experience in life. I trust it, I listen to it, and that's how the process of creating objects comes about. I love mystery and not knowing what the final product will be, so I'll either find an object that inspires an idea and then go to different materials, whichever is suitable to execute the idea. And it's all kind of a mysterious process to me. I open my imagination and intuition as I work, and that's how it comes about. I never do a sketch or a drawing and say, okay, this is what I'm going to make. My inspiration comes from finding things in the world that are unexpected. As I go outside, sometimes I'll find an object that's discarded and pick it up and bring it home, and it becomes inventory for my artwork.
There's never a right or wrong way to view art. When you walk into Launa's studio, it's all about how the artwork makes you think and how it makes you feel.
I don't think there's any shoulds in the art world. I hope that the viewer, just like I bring my imagination to the creative process, brings their imagination to the objects I create. It's interesting because people sometimes when they're in the studio looking at my work, they'll look at a certain piece and ask me, well, what is the meaning of this, or what did you intend? And I ask them, well, what do you see in the piece? What does your imagination tell you about the piece? And then they continue and tell me this whole incredible story about what the piece means to them and how they interpret it. And then they'll look back at me, is that correct? And it's like, there's nothing that correct or incorrect about art. Art is something that should inspire people to look beyond what we see in reality in the world. And so for me, that's important. That's why if you look at the body of my work, there are elements that are familiar, but a lot of it is left up to the interpretation of a viewer. My advice to young artists is to always be passionate about what you pursue, and art is a vehicle to open one's imagination and their intuition, which can be applied to any profession in this world. Unfortunately, a lot of young people now growing up with the internet and iPhones and all kinds of electronic devices that distract them. The conversation is not about what you see in the world, it's about other things, which I think is unfortunate. I think young artists should be encouraged by their parents to get outside and play games and create an alternate universe rather than being glued to an iPhone or being on TikTok or doing things that literally make you very insular and you're not looking outside yourself to the world. When I first moved to Brooklyn, my studio is around the corner from a community garden, and I met a lot of young parents, and in talking to them, they explained that art was no longer part of the curriculum in school, that if you took an art class, they paid for it. It was like extra curriculum outside of their class time. And it inspired me to work in the garden. I created a program called Art in the Garden, which I wrote grants for, and I ran it for 15 years. And parents and children would come into the garden, and I hired different artists to teach different workshops. And all of the parents said, wow, you're using such simple materials, paper and paint and cardboard. And I said, yes, using your imagination doesn't cost a lot of money. It just needs the time, the place, and the encouragement to do so.
If you'd like to visit the studio or you're interested in any art, visit the website launabeuhler.com or watch the segment again at thebalancingAct.com.